Thinking of investing, working, or starting a business in the cannabis industry? We've got you covered right here on Plant Problems. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, Plant Problems takes a different approach to cannabis than what you're seeing and hearing from the mainstream media. Come along with Tony and be in the know about how to invest, work, or start a cannabis business. Let's get the show started with your host, Tony Frischknecht.
Hi, everyone. This is Tony Frischknecht with Plant Problems. Thank you guys so much for joining me today and listening in. I hope your day is going well. I have some awesome stuff coming up for you guys today. Today, I am bringing back a guest that I just had on very recently. We were discussing social equity and what it is and what it has to do in our society right now. So I wanted to share a definition with you guys that I actually borrowed from the next gentleman. Social equity is a novel concept that has yet to have a standard definition. As social equity programs evolve, so does our understanding of what they are, why social equity matters, and why now is the right time for social equity programs. Furthermore, in this chapter, sorry guys, I'm going to stop right there. Like I said, I borrowed it from the next gentleman. So this next gentleman has just completed his first publication of the book called Understanding Social Equity. Chris Nani, how are you doing today? Welcome.
Hey, Tony. Thanks for having me on. Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I know that wasn't too long ago. We talked, about a month and a half ago when you were almost finishing up the book?
Mm-hmm.
So how has it been going? You just launched, I believe it was last week. Is that correct?
Yes, last Friday we released the book.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. You had a lot of obstacles to overcome to put this together. It sounds like very overwhelming. You're dealing with, it looks like you had 10 to 12 different authors that helped you write the book. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had a dozen other authors help write this.
Sounds like a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
What was some of the challenges that you had when you were creating this book?
So I would say probably the biggest challenge was initially framing this book, kind of planning it out and figuring out what is understanding social equity in the sense that what are all the components to it, the what's, the whys, the history behind it, and then figuring out who's an expert in that field or who's someone who has extensive research that's looked into these subjects, and then connecting with them and then eventually soliciting them to help write this book with me.
Well, you definitely have an array of folks to work with here. You've got a professor from Ohio State. You've got several attorneys. You've got chairman of the board of Minority Cannabis Business Association. You've got chairman of the board of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. You also have people that you've connected with on Weed Maps, Marijuana Business Daily. I mean, you've got some really solid individuals here. I can imagine how did you come across contacting all these guys? Are you friends with any of these guys? Did you work with them in the past?
Yeah, so I would say everyone's story is a little bit unique, but the majority of these people I've connected with either through LinkedIn, cannabis events, or somehow we've worked in the past before on prior social equity events. So I kind of knew some of the key players before, and the people that I didn't know, I would reach out to them just because it's still a very small community. So you can imagine word goes around fast when someone does something.
Absolutely. When you approached some of these guys, what was your sales point? You're like, hey, I got an idea, or how did that go?
Yeah, so that was a tough one. So for a few of the people, I was kind of just, this is before we even had the book idea, I was just kind of spitballing saying, hey, do you guys have any resources for social equity we can send to people like regulators or policymakers? I'm getting really tired of saying the same things to the same regulators over and over again. We're really having the same conversations. And if this was all in one spot, it would be a lot easier for them, for me, everyone around.
Yeah. So then the idea was, all right, well, let's put together a step-by-step on how to understand the social equity. According to your book, at least, that's what I'm reading.
Right. So the next step was then to kind of, I guess you could say, brainstorm what is social equity and the components of it, kind of laying out the foundation of it. So actually, quite a few of the people that are on the list actually helped brainstorm articles and ideas for the book. Professor Berman from Ohio State, for example, and Emily Burns, an attorney, both came up with their sections for big data metrics and constitutional problems that social equity programs can face.
Hey everyone, Tony Frischknecht here with Plant Problems. I want to thank you guys for listening in, your why do this show. And I also want to thank you for leaving me a review, taking your precious 15 seconds of your time and spending it with me and sharing me what I do well and what I can improve on. So please go to plantproblem.com and leave those questions, comments, or reviews. All right, back to the show. I think the approach of taking so many different people and understanding their perspective is changing the way books are being created now. You know, I published my book last year, and I noticed that there was a lot of people out there that were publishing books with multiple authors. What are the unique things that brings into the book when you have so many people involved in this?
I think one of the biggest things it brings for social equity is that it adds validity and credibility to it, just because this is a very highly sensitive subject that no one person can speak about and be the end all for. I think it's very important to have as many people in the community that speak about it regularly, engage regulators, and talk about social equity, and collectively coming together to say, these are our thoughts, and then there's just one spot for everyone to see them.
So taking them to that one spot, there had to have been some, I wouldn't say arguments, but some different conflicts between what people's thoughts, really what they thought should be there. How did you work with those people to kind of get resolution and say, you know what, this is the direction we should head. We understand your thoughts here, but how did you weave them through the process to actually make this happen?
Right. Yeah. It's a very careful subject, like you were mentioning, depending on the terminology used, what kind of angle you're taking at things. Luckily for us, the majority of authors, actually, I would say all of the authors, were very aligned on the subject. It isn't too hard to understand that social equity programs, for example, should be a part of the cannabis industry if you look at the history. These are basic tenets we agreed on. And from there moving forward, actually in the preface, there's a disclaimer at the very end that says the authors, they represent their own sections and there will be disagreements. But that's the point of this book, is for you to fully understand these are the different ideas and viewpoints.
Talking about particulars of the actual book itself, I was reading about Maryland's AG's office, how they, and this was in Professor Berman's section at the beginning, and he was stating the facts that the AG's office had referenced social equity to the Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission, and they wanted to have some movement in there. Can you go into a little more depth on what you're seeing with states like Maryland and other states that are very similar trying to implement a social equity program and what the difficulties are there?
Yeah, I would say we're in a very different landscape for social equity now than we were 2 weeks ago. I think public opinion is very much favorable for social equity in the cannabis industry, and we've seen a massive shift in public opinion with the Black Lives Matter movement. I think it's done a great job bringing light a lot of the issues that are going on. And so with that being said, I think a lot of regulators are now more open-minded to the idea of social equity programs because they've seen just the sheer amount of people that are protesting right now, the sheer amount of people that honestly care about these social issues. So in that regard, I think there will be less challenges for future social equity programs. I think the biggest challenges still remain, though, are knowing what a program is and how to implement regulations in a fair way. So for example, we have 4 case studies, you could say, in our book near the end of the chapters on a few different cities and states, their social equity programs, how they implemented them. One of the most heavily criticized programs has been Los Angeles. And for example, when they opened up their social equity program, it was the first 100 people to submit, not based on merit or application, just a time-based thing. And there were a lot of issues with that. There was some alleged corruption, people accessing the system early, just tons of problems. So you can imagine whenever there's social equity, it's going to come under close scrutiny also for the fact that these licenses are worth millions of dollars. So it's very important that they go to the right people in the right communities.
What does it have to do with the U.S. Constitution? That's a big part of this, correct?
Mm-hmm.
When you start working together, trying to build social equity programs, how does the U.S. Constitution fall into this?
So the Constitution has a Bill of Rights. It also has additional amendments. One of the amendments, the 14th Amendment, requires that there's an equal protection clause. So regardless of race, color, creed, national origin, sex, I think I might have been missing one or two, but it's been a minute since law school. But it states that everyone should be treated equally and fairly. So you have a lot of cases that decided that. Brown versus Board of Education, for example, 1 and 2. The thing with social equity is that to make a program effective, it has to be race neutral. It can't apply to specific races to advantage or disadvantage one over the other. And so what we've seen in programs like Ohio, for example, when they attempted to implement their program, they were very race specific, and that's unconstitutional. They were saying these certain races are allowed in to the social equity program, they're qualified for it, and that's one of the factors. So a way around that is to say, a constitutional way, I should say, is to say if you have a cannabis conviction, that can show direct harm from the war on drugs. If you live in an area that's been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs, meaning it's been over-policed, high arrest records, all these things contribute. They're tangible evidence that you've been harmed by the war on drugs. The standard's very low to show if you've been harmed by the war on drugs, but it can't be based on the color of one's skin.
So we're trying to figure out a fairness here, right? Somehow to keep this fair. It sounds extremely confusing for the states as they put these systems in place. It's a fine line, it seems like. Is that what you're coming across when you talk to the states?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everyone is concerned that their social equity program is going to come under litigation. Heads up, 100% of them will. But people are very concerned about how they're construed because every single thing will be litigated.
Did you say 100% of them will?
100% of social equity programs will be sued. I can guarantee it.
The last time I heard that was 2013. I was at a tax event with the city and state of Denver, and this is what they said. They said, we will guarantee that 100% of you guys will deal with some kind of auditing process. So be aware.
Yeah.
It kind of put me back on my heels like, whoa, they just said they're going to audit us, all of us. And there was probably a room of 200 people, right? And I imagine maybe 60% of us took it seriously and the rest of the 40 did not. It seems like that's a pretty scary place to be in for a state, that they're really antagonizing litigation. What does the state have and the regulators have to fall back on to protect themselves?
So that's the thing. We're still learning as the process goes on. So we still have very little in the way of actual social equity programs, meaning that there's not much research out there. There's not much legal precedent out there either to say, this is what's legal, this is what's constitutional. And with that being said, just like with any new area of law, for example, there's going to be tons of litigation so we can learn how to operate legally.
So your case law is very limited, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so much in line with the cannabis industry.
Yes, it's very close. It follows a very similar trend.
And we've seen some leaps and bounds over the last 5 to 6 years, I should say, but we still have some major obstacles that need to be cleared at this point and cleared out of the way so that companies can be successful. How do companies position themselves to use social equity as a part of their business and their company?
One of the first ways a business that could do that, and let's say this is a normal cannabis dispensary that's new to the social equity scene. I think one of the biggest ways you can do that is to start supporting businesses that are owned by social equity qualified people. So you can find these businesses, they have lists. I know Los Angeles and Oakland have them, for example, because those are the winners. So you can see who's a social equity applicant. These are the people that have been harmed by the war on drugs and that are really the ones who need the help the most, because you look at some of the qualifications for them. Low income is one of them. I think Richard actually touches on this in the book, but as far as low income, that means you need to make, I think, 400% or below the federal poverty limit. I mean, that in no way is enough to build a dispensary, inventory, train employees, run a store. And so these are the applicants that are really looking for business to help start their own, so they can be successful.
So what it sounds like is maybe to be more effective, they need more a partnership to be successful.
Right. Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
So yeah, I love that idea, especially if you as a business owner out there and audience guys, that if you're able to find somebody to work with on this, you could also see some huge advantages for you and your company in the growth. I mean, I can see it as a huge publicity part. Like, look, we're coming together to help these guys up, to give them a leg up, but also teach them a lot that they don't know about right now, and make a real impact in changing somebody's statute where they're at, right? And understanding, okay, how can we make good business decisions as we grow? In this time right now, if you're up for the challenge, I think this is, most people that are in cannabis are always up for the challenge, right? At least the ones that are still around. But guys, I appreciate you listening to me out here, because I'm working through this in my head and I'm trying to understand some opportunities that are available in this. And I think looking at something that Chris has created here. So his book, Understanding Social Equity, you're not charging anything for this, right?
Correct.
This is totally open to you guys. It's got a great breakdown of what he's seen over the last couple of years, because you've been working on this for two years now, since 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's also got a tool that he's created to give to regulators to work with to build their own programs. And so what I'm trying to do is understand, where can you implement an idea that you can grow your company in social equity. And from what Chris is sharing with us, there's a huge partnership aspect to this, that if you're willing to take a risk, which you are in cannabis, if you're willing to work with some of these guys that are designated social equity businesses. You were just saying that there's some in LA that they can find, right? Is there a good place for people to go search for these that you can recommend, Chris?
Yeah. So for Massachusetts, for example, it's on I think it's the CCC's website, the Cannabis Control Commission's website. In Los Angeles, Oakland, it's on the regulators page. And these are very well publicized areas. It shouldn't be hard to find them.
Awesome. So, and I take it you probably have some special relationship with some of these guys. Am I correct in thinking that? Like, you've met these guys and talked to them personally?
Yes. I've gotten to know a lot of good people over the years.
Are you willing, if people are interested in contacting you for a connection, are you willing to put people together if they're looking for some individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know where you're looking, and I'll let you know if I have any of my friends over there. I'll connect you with them.
That's awesome. I bring this up because I've talked about this so many times. The partnerships are really challenging, and finding the right people, not just people that have a business and a pulse, right? Because there's millions of those on every corner, but actually finding good people. And so I appreciate you opening up that for folks to reach out to you. Okay, let's go back to this. So you got your book published. How is the information being accepted right now? What's happening right now in your world?
Oh, so I'll say as soon as I published the book, I had this one author send me a text. And he said, hey, Chris, I'm really nervous about this book, but in a good way. This is the first of its kind. I'm not sure what people are going to think about it because we're saying we know something about it. And so far, it's been overwhelmingly positive. I've been really happy just to see all the positivity in the comments, the messages people are sending. It's been really nice to see.
That's incredible. Well, I want people to go check this out. Like Chris said, it's free to download. Where can they find this on your website?
Sure, yeah. So the book is free to download. It's actually, if you go to LinkedIn and you type in Chris Nani, it'll be the first result you should see for me. It's up all over LinkedIn. I have a Google Doc up. You can also personally email me at chrisnani@gmail.com, and I'll send you the PDF myself. Either way, it's online or I can send a PDF, but more than happy to share it.
Well, sounds like you guys have a lot of choices out there to find this, so it shouldn't be hard. Guys, this is in front of everybody's face today. And so I strongly urge you guys to go read this book because it's got a step-by-step, lays out so many different things that we're not aware of. And it's all in one place. It's super convenient. So, Chris, awesome work and congratulations on your first publication. I look forward to reading the rest of it. Like I read quite a bit, but I wanted to get through. There's some interesting information in there all over. So you guys should really go check out his book. And if you guys have any questions for me, please visit plantproblem.com and feel free to comment on this episode or any others. I also challenge you to reach out to Chris. Ask him for those connections. He's got them right in his pocket and he's willing to share them with you. Any more direct than that, I mean, is pretty much a handshake. So I don't know what else to tell you. So guys, I hope you guys are having a great day out there. And I really look forward to seeing you guys very soon, building some amazing stuff in our industry. So thank you so much for listening, guys. And I will talk to you later. Bye for now.
You've just listened to another insightful episode of Plant Problems. If you like what you heard so far, don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. For additional resources or to leave a review, head over to plantproblems.com. Join us again next week on Plant Problems with Tony Frischknecht. We look forward to having conversations with you as we go along this journey.